Hi, and welcome to Coffee with Confio. I'm William Freitas, and today's theme is the business of love. Today on the show, we've got Claudia Neal-Shaw, and Claudia has a legal and communications background, and she specializes in the customer experience. She founded Candor Consulting, which provides marketing solutions to small business around Australia and across the world. She's also the founder and the marriage celebrant of the Love Diaries. Claudia, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Very excited.
We're excited to have you. Firstly, we know you're in the wedding industry, but tell us more about the business of love.
The business of love for me certainly started with the experiences of love we have every day, whether it's between partners, between friends and families, and a lot of the time where we're having those experiences together is at weddings. And my first experience of seeing a young wedding celebrant delivering a ceremony certainly inspired me to take that pathway of trying to discover, okay, how can I create a fantastic customer experience and service for millennial couples who are perhaps wanting to transform their meaning of what a wedding means to them, and how they can also include family and friends in that process.
And tell me more about the customer experience that you take your customers through. What differentiates your service, and tell me how you really bring out that love in your service.
I think from my perspective, I'm a millennial myself, and it was really about understanding, okay, if I'm in the situation where I'm considering getting engaged, getting married, going through these massive milestones, how can I create a process that is going to make couples feel empowered, inspired, and really enjoy, I guess, some of maybe the more boring traditional stuff that we have to do, like the legal paperwork, and then really being able to transform that into a ceremony that is super exciting and ends up being the most memorable part of the day. So it was really about saying, okay, what does a traditional wedding process look like, and how can we then innovate that to meet the needs of a millennial couple, whether it's providing technology that's going to make the process easier for them, automating things, saving time, but also allowing them to feel really empowered in that process and say, okay, we're two people who are individuals, but we're coming together as a couple and we really want to celebrate that love. Yeah. What are the kinds of things that we can include to really represent who we are, whether it's from champagne showers through the ceremony or having llamas walk them down the aisle. I've certainly had some interesting requests in my time for people who really want to be able to create something that is super unique to them.
Perfect. And I love that particularly because many of the listeners back home will be dealing in businesses that, business has been done a traditional way for many years, and they're dealing with finding the balance between tradition and innovation, and you've obviously struck the balance quite well. What are some of the tips and the tricks that you might be able to give to some of the listeners back home as to how they can differentiate their service and bring some innovation to have that perfect balance with innovation and tradition?
I think it comes down to weighing up what you believe your value is versus what your perceived value is. If your customer base values tradition, you have to understand how you can weave parts of that into your process. I believe that my customer base definitely values innovation. Marriage is an incredibly traditional process. It began from that religious background. It's now moving into something that is more accessible for all people in that civil setting. That's what a civil celebrant does. And so it was very much about, okay, how can I create a process for busy couples who don't have a lot of time, who might be overwhelmed by the process of getting married, and make it super enjoyable. So whether it's from, simple things as, Zoom meetings as opposed to a face-to-face meeting, it's, things like couple interviews online and through a really time-effective process where they can answer questions and really give their views and I guess thoughts and opinions in quite a safe space where they're filling something out and they can send it through to me, and then we can reconnect and really clarify some of that stuff. And also giving examples. So creating an online resource or education kind of portal for couples where they can go in and say, we've never been married before, we've got no idea how to do this, and really going in and being able to educate themselves in a way that doesn't feel super overwhelming and that they might not know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And it just prepares them a little bit better to go into the process with some more clarity.
Perfect. And what I hear the most is the perceived value element. Everyone knows the Apple case study where, you buy an Apple iPhone. Admittedly, I'm one of them.
Me too.
But you don't necessarily buy an Apple iPhone because they're the best, right? Otherwise, their battery life would be better.
Yeah.
But you're happy to pay 20-30% more than anyone else because it's the customer experience and the perceived value that they give and that community that they've built around that service or product. Talk us through some of the marketing solutions, obviously with Candor Consulting, that you've got some experience with and you've provided as, I guess, a recommendation to some of your clients.
I think in both businesses, both with Candor and the Love Diaries, it's an incredibly personal service, particularly with that wedding side. It's someone you're choosing to represent you, but also in marketing, you are enlisting someone who's an expert in this space to be able to offer your business something that it's not already doing. I think the two things that are super important in any business when considering how you want to market your value is the planning, and also what kind of authenticity can you ensure is going to be present at all times. There's no point in pitching yourself as one thing online and not being able to then deliver that in person. I think creating that link between being consistently authentic is super crucial, and I've seen at times, particularly with different brands, where that might not have been achieved, and it's very evident very quickly. Customers are incredibly switched on and smart and can smell when something is not authentic. So it's very much about considering what you want your messaging to be, being super consistent with it, and focusing on that quality rather than quantity of get everything out there, make sure everyone knows our name, instead of saying, okay, why don't we put out two really great things that people remember us.
And really focusing on that, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I love that it's attributed or applicable to all businesses in all different industries, which is great. We'll summarise that really by saying the customer experience is central to what the client needs to focus on with their product or service. We're going to wrap up and we're going to leave you with the Confio confession, as we always do.
Yes.
What is one thing that no one knows about you?
One thing that people might not know about me, during my wedding training, you have to do a lot of practical experience. So you've got to do mock wedding ceremonies, and I unfortunately had to enlist my boyfriend as the main groom and the star of the show. And he, in fact, had to marry his own mother and my best friend on camera for these markers to see, and he's never let me forget it. So, when later down the track, when we decide to get married, it's very much, okay, well, you've married your mother and my best friend first, so you're ready to go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Claudia, thank you for being on the show.
No, thank you.
It was great having you on the show and hearing your, I guess, view of the business of love and how the customer experience is so central to that. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions for myself or Claudia, feel free to reach out to us on any of our socials or listen to our podcast, which is Coffee with Confio, the Modern Business Podcast. Claudia, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you again. Cheers.